and the science hasn't quite gone into these nuances yet. It just kind of makes these broad generalizations. But there is a bleeding heart type. There's a bleeding heart subset of the left. It's not all the left, but there's a bleeding heart subtype. They are overwhelmingly the people who go into counselling, and especially this type of mental health, because this type of mental health has been so stigmatized over the years, and it gets so much judgment because it's one of the ones that's harder for people to understand, I think, who haven't ever had it. And there has been this extreme judgment against people with these problems, calling them vain and stuff, and shallow, and you don't have a real problem and stuff, like stuff like this. And because of we know from neuroscience, people in this subtype of being left-wing do generally have an easier time empathizing with people, even if they haven't been in that situation themselves. That's like one of the traits. So if you can empathize with someone, even if you know nothing about them, no context, you see a sad face, you tend to have a higher instinctive reaction. And they you're more likely, the other part of it, which is huge in explaining how fat acceptance is what it is you're more likely to come up with explanations for behavior that are external to the individual. So you are more likely to assume that when someone is obsessing over their body, say, society in some way made them, like some external force made them obsess over their body. It couldn't have come from them. And if you want to be thin, it can't possibly be that it came from you as either like a biological drive that we have, maybe I think we want to be somewhat thin. I don't think most of us want to be crazy, but most of us want to be a bit thin because of biology, because we were supposed to chase mammoths all day. I think that's as simple as it, and some of us by genetic fluke, maybe one of the one extreme or the other. I think as a genetic fluke, some of us have a preference that is wildly different from that. But the left wing sort of impulse overall, usually, and it's not always wrong. Sometimes it's absolutely right. And this is why I say we need a diversity of brain types in different professions so that someone can suggest other alternative explanations. I don't think there was an alternative voice in the room ever when these conditions were being analysed, when the staff first got there and first started talking to these mostly girls. I don't think there was anyone there to say, what if it's not coming from society? It was like the impulse, but obviously it has to come from outside them. It can't possibly be from within them. Also, evolutionary psychology was much less of a thing back then. I'm talking like 60s, 70s, 80s. It wasn't, so they wouldn't have thought of that anyway. But I still think the right-wingers in the room would have maybe not just assumed automatically it's the magazine's fault, it's society's fault, it's your mom, it's your children at school. It's they wouldn't have blamed society automatically, unthinkingly. And we now know that these conditions are highly genetic, and especially the one where you reduce your weight too much. That one is super genetic, like so highly genetic. Like, in fact, they think it hasn't actually increased in rate whatsoever when you take into account the demographic changes over time. Yeah, because like certain demographic, like certain ages get it more. When you look at like the percentage of, say, teenage girls who have it at any given time, it actually hasn't gone up. Just like awareness of it has gone up. Maybe diagnostic, like the rapidity with which you get diagnosed maybe has gone up, and the range of demographics who get diagnosed, like men used to be able to fly under the radar and people wouldn't suspect that was the cause for a long time, and that's shifted. But actual true raw numbers, when you analyze it enough to see like, okay, but what's the actual rate, it hasn't gone up because it's genetic. So it kind of throws away the whole idea that it comes from society. It doesn't come from society, it comes from the person, which doesn't mean we should like this, it doesn't mean they're a bad person, but it does it's an internal thing, right? But the people who went into the field wouldn't have seen it that way. So you got this idea that if you want to be thin, it's not from you. It's absolutely society making you want to be thin. And any way you feel about yourself, that's internalized from outside. I think they got that from the staff. That was what the initial load of staff contributed. And then over time, the staff themselves changed and began to be the patients who would come back after treatment. These people who came out of treatment and then grew up and decided, I'm going to get a degree, I want to work in that clinic. That's where I felt like I was around my people. And that's where I felt most like, a lot of them have real gratitude and they have the best intentions. But a lot of those people started, I think very quickly, the evidence is, people who used to have these problems and maybe still do, went to work in the field, and that got more of a problem. And again, because you don't have many right wingers in there, I think part of the problem was because it was skewing so far in one sort of brain type, one sort of way of looking at the world. You had all of the staff who did not have this toxic ritualistic problem wouldn't have pushed back as hard as maybe they could have done, because of this impulse of, well, I don't have the lived experience, so what right do I have? Because I have no lived experience. This person, I should listen to them, even if it sounds a bit weird to me when they say that we should actually be telling everyone it doesn't matter if they get overweight. Like, some of them probably thought, oh, that's a bit weird. And then I think over time, they just got pushed out. And now it seems to me that almost everyone in the field, you just look at these people, they're all either very big or not necessarily like too thin, but by today's standards, like, it's where, like, most people in, say, the United States and the UK, it's just unusual to even be like a little bit thin. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of unusual. So you see all these people and they're either one or the other, and none of them are like super thin, but a lot of them are like as thin as you can get without people saying something, put it that way, as if they're just skirting by, and they are, I think, vicariously living their obsession through other people. They're